Hello, everybody. So today's dot day. Happy dot day. I want to talk about stacking MSTR specifically today because Michael Saylor tweeted, "Stay humble, stack sats." And of course, for a public company, it makes a lot of sense. He has to stack sats. It's not like he can stack another Bitcoin treasury company. It's not like he can start buying MetaPlanet or anything like that. But for me, a question that arises is, should I really stack sats or should I stack MSTR? And so we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of that question. Bitcoin is bouncing back just a little bit. Remember, Friday was down, everything was down because it's a big options day. MSTR itself, of course, over the long run, you are looking at 35 times your money ever since they adopted the Bitcoin strategy, right? So 35x. And yesterday, it dropped 6%. Like, who cares? I mean, that's such a tiny drop. It really doesn't matter. Down 6%. And you know the thesis of MSTR, of course. That's the black hole thesis. That's the thesis of you are only a one-way road, a one-way street. People buy the MSTR equity, they buy the MSTR preferreds, and then Saylor turns that equity, that preferred, into Bitcoin, and it's only a one-way. It never gets turned back into fiat, and as a result of that, you get a black hole who's just sucking all of the capital, or you get a siphon who's draining all of the dollars, all of the money into Bitcoin. But either way, the concept is that it's a one-way street. That's the hypothesis behind MSTR as an investment. That's why I love the stock so much, and I've loved it for a very long time. So now let's talk about the crux of this video, which is, should I stack MSTR? And my point is I'm more stacking MSTR than I'm stacking Bitcoin at this point. As a public CEO, of course, Michael Saylor cannot recommend his own stock. He has to recommend a commodity. Is allowed to recommend a commodity. And so he talks about a commodity, he doesn't talk about a stock. And that's the key distinction. And that's why he says stay humble, stack sats. He could not say stay humble, stack MSTR. But me, I am an entertainer. No financial advice ever on this channel. I just entertain. And so as an entertainer, I can share some of my musings of the topic. And so let's get started. So I'm just talking about me, telling you my experience. Should I stack Bitcoin? Well, in my view, stacking Bitcoin on a cold wallet, that period of my life is over. The cold wallets are now dusty and they won't ever hit the internet again. Soon they will stop working because they will be too old, and there's only so many years that a USB stick can withstand the weather and all that sort of stuff. The seed phrases are offline, they're secured, and frankly, I will never sell this Bitcoin, and I will likely die with this Bitcoin. And I know I sound like a hardcore Bitcoiner. I should run a node. I've been thinking about it many times, but I'm also probably past that stage of my life. But the point is, do I want to stack more Bitcoin in pure form? And the answer to that is no. At this point, no, because it's enough. It's enough. And if Bitcoin is pure form, is Bitcoin that I never intend to spend, then why do I need more, right? I don't intend to spend it. I'm very fine with the cold storage Bitcoin that I have. I'm moving to a new phase, growing up. But what if you don't have cold storage Bitcoin? Now that's a different story. If someone doesn't have a cold storage Bitcoin, I would definitely get one, because cold storage Bitcoin is one thing that protects you uniquely, that you can't get that protection anywhere else, and it's the insurance policy aspect of Bitcoin, what Shamat Palihapitiya calls schmuck insurance. The insurance policy aspect of pure form Bitcoin really can't be found anywhere else. It really can't be found anywhere else. And as I experienced not long ago, a week ago, Cash App doesn't give you that experience either. I had some Bitcoin on the Cash App. I was like, let me transfer it to Robinhood because, they had a 2% match. Cash App wouldn't let me transfer more than $2,000. It stopped me. Right? And so even Bitcoin on Coinbase or Bitcoin on Cash App doesn't help you at all with that unique protection of freedom of speech Bitcoin giving you. Those string of 24 words that you memorize in your head That is a very, very, very unique thing. And I think it makes sense to have some if you don't have any, because there's a scenario where that's helpful. And that scenario is, what if the markets are closed for a prolonged period of time for a reason or another? I don't know, say a war or something. What do you do? What if your bank goes bankrupt? Well, remember Silicon Valley Bank. They, of course, eventually got a bailout, but we didn't know that for 72 hours, and some companies were really scared, right? Some people had no idea. So as we custody more and more Bitcoin in financial institutions, that question comes back, which is, what do you do if a bank goes bankrupt? And again, this you can only be protected by pure form Bitcoin. What if it's similar to the bank going bankrupt? Because banks haven't gone bankrupt because the government keeps bailing them out. But what if, I don't know, in 2045 for some reason you have a government that says no more bailout for banks? And of course I would be very happy about that. But what if you have that happens and they say no more bailout for banks, right? What do you do in that case? Because maybe your too big to fail bank doesn't get a bailout, and then you didn't own the Bitcoin straight ahead. You didn't own the Bitcoin in your head. You didn't own the key, not your keys, not your coins, right? That's the whole adage, the old adage of Bitcoin. And of course, the final use case of cold Bitcoin is war. What if, for a reason or another, you need to leave your country? You can't really bring your bank account. You can't bring your stocks with you, but you can bring cold wallet Bitcoin. And in fact, you lose the USB stick. You don't care. Or even if you printed it on some sheet of paper, if you're an even older Bitcoiner, you just memorize the key, and you memorize the key, you're good to go. It's money as free speech. That right there is a very, very unique insurance policy that can only be found in pure form Bitcoin. I have it, I love it, it's enough. But if someone doesn't have it, I highly, highly, highly recommend having it. Nothing can beat that. So from that standpoint, I agree with Saylor. Stay humble, stack sats. I agree on there. But assuming someone has stacked some sats, and, of course, you got to think about how much to stack. Well, look at the long-term prediction for the price of Bitcoin, right? If Bitcoin is $21 million in 2045, you don't need to have stacked that much in a pure form, because these risks are very low, in my view. They're very low. These risks are very low, especially in a country like the United States. They're very low. So, and half of my viewers are from the US. But anyways, and so you might want to adjust that, right? Depending on where you are, you might want to have a little more cold storage than not, depending on where you're at. So anyways, as my share of new money, new money comes in and you invest it, right now, I love Bitcoin treasury companies. For the longest time, I was stacking MSTR. I was very loud on this channel about MSTR when it was trading at much lower levels. Lately, I've been stacking some Bitcoin-based companies, some companies built on Bitcoin. You have the treasury companies, right? MetaPlanet, Smarter Web. These are pure play treasury companies. But I also like Cooler very much. It's a space company. They make batteries to go into a space station and to go to Mars. And why do I like it? Because they have Bitcoin on the balance sheet, right? If Tesla, it's a company I like because of that. If Tesla, for example, had more Bitcoin on the balance sheet, Tesla could become a very, very interesting play, because you don't really believe in a car business, well, you have Bitcoin to back it up. You don't really believe in Bitcoin, well, you have the Tesla car business to back it up. So it creates this very unique asset when you have two different streams, two different value props in a single wrapper. And I believe eventually most companies will own Bitcoin. And whether it's a Bitcoin treasury strategy where you're just trying to own Bitcoin, or whether you are a strategy where you have your own revenue, your own business, but you decide to take your profits and put them in Bitcoin as opposed to taking your profits and destroying them through buybacks, I think they're eventually gonna merge and become kind of the same thing. And pure Bitcoin treasury companies might be the banks of the future, right? And companies who still have a business, they might be the future tech firms, or the future future regular companies who just own Bitcoin, which is going to be the thing in my view. But anyways, so let's talk about MSTR. Back to MSTR. Why would you want to stack MSTR? Well, I have a list of 5 points why I love to stack MSTR still to this day. Well, first of all, I want to stack MSTR because when you own Bitcoin via MSTR, you still get the economic benefits of Bitcoin. The numbers go up, technology, the network effects, the hardest money on earth, all of the economic benefits of Bitcoin, not the freedom benefits of Bitcoin, but the economic benefits of Bitcoin, you still get them by buying MSTR. Of course, you don't get protection from seizures if there's a war. You don't get portability across nations, but you get the economic benefits. And I think for most people, getting access to the economic benefits of Bitcoin is the number one reason and the biggest reason why you own Bitcoin. I trust the USA to protect my basic rights, right? That's why I pay taxes, and I'm perfectly happy paying taxes for that. I trust my country for that, right? That's still suppose how it works. But some countries maybe you don't really trust as much to protect your freedoms and your basic rights, and then in that case, pure form Bitcoin becomes very, very important in that case. But otherwise, if you own Bitcoin mostly for economic benefits, which a lot of the West is the main reason to own it, then having a small cold wallet, that's important. That's in addition to your country protecting you. But then after you're done with that, I think economic benefits, kind of outweigh the need for additional protection. And I love that I can get most of the economic benefits of Bitcoin via MSTR on fiat rails, on TradFi, I should call them TradFi rails, which I think is a big deal. Okay. MSTR does not really need Bitcoin to go up very much to make money. This is another big point. This is my point number 2. All it needs to keep making money is the price to NAV to sustain itself. At 1.66 price to NAV, kind of mid-range of the past 6 months, kind of a mid-range 1.66. At this NAV, you have enough to stack more sats. So you grow the sats per share, you grow the bag of the MSTR shareholder every week. You have enough of a premium to do that, and you also have enough of a premium to pay your dividends on your preferred. So if the stock stays at a 1.66 for years and Bitcoin doesn't do much, you're still gonna be fine, I guess is the point I'm trying to say. And so of course for the price to NAV to be sustained, you want Bitcoin to go up. Yeah, you still want people to believe in Bitcoin. So eventually you want Bitcoin to go up. But I'm just saying you're less reliant on Bitcoin going up a lot to make money with MSTR. If you own pure form Bitcoin, the performance of Bitcoin is your performance. With MSTR, you amplify the performance of Bitcoin with MSTR on top of it. So with the treasury strategy, with the selling $1 for $1.66 in this case, selling $1 for $1.66, you collect 66. Well, I'll remind you, last week he sold more than $500 million for $1.66. So that's how much BTC gain he's making each time. Okay, so that's point number 2. Point number 3 is you can borrow against your MSTR shares. MSTR exists on TradFi rails already. It's a big deal. It's on the NASDAQ. It's heavily traded, heavily liquid, which means that your broker doesn't have a problem using MSTR as collateral. I finally got a low maintenance ratio on MSTR. I was pissed that I didn't have it, and I finally got it. So I'm good now. MSTR is fully marginable as a stock. I think most brokers are coming around and they stop the discrimination against strategy. So that's pretty good. Actually, the preferreds are starting to have interesting maintenance ratio. On one of my brokers, I saw the preferred was at a 70% maintenance ratio, strike STRK. I anticipate the preferreds will have a 25% maintenance ratio at some point. They are preferred stock at the end of the day. So I anticipate they'll have that maintenance ratio. And that means you can borrow against MSTR or MSTR derivatives. You can borrow at the lowest rates, on Robinhood, what is it, like 5.5%, something like that. And of course, remember the good old days of low interest rates, that used to be 2%. And so when rates eventually drop in a few years, you'll be able to borrow on that security at 2%. And so that's the buy, borrow, die methodology. That's what the rich do. Is you own free and clear a stock that gives you $1 million of margin. Well, maybe you borrow 50,000 year 1 and 75,000 year 2 and 100,000 year 3, and then your 1 million worth of stock turned into 3 million, and then you find out that you can now borrow 2.25 million on it, and so you end up removing your ratio of borrowed money. So that's the buy, borrow, die strategy. That's what a lot of people like to do, and I always look at my stocks through this lens, because a stock that is marginable is more expensive than a stock that is not marginable. This is kind of how TradFi works. There is this fractional reserve banking system that exists for stocks with the Reg T of the SEC, and they qualify with Reg T for Reg T for that. So anyways, that's point number 3. If you're interested in buy, borrow, die, we have a mature system in TradFi to do buy, borrow, die. If you're interested in buy, borrow, die with pure Bitcoin, yeah, you can still do it, but is it mature? Is it mature enough? That's the big question. And you remember the BlockFi and the Celsius fiasco of 2022 and FTX, right? So I would argue it's 3 years ago. I'm not sure we're mature enough. I'd like to be maybe 10 years after an event like this to get back to warming up to the idea of eventually lending BTC. And of course, I never lent BTC because I'm too old of a Bitcoiner. I'm too hardcore of a Bitcoiner. But that idea will come, and people will be comfortable at one point. Just probably never me, because I'll be the older Bitcoiner who's never going to be like that. But hopefully, I don't want to get cranky like a lot of Bitcoin maximalists. But it's just the way it is. Anyway, I ramble. Back to the topic. Okay. Result number 4, MSTR frankly is a bargain right now. MSTR MNAV is 1.66. It's frankly a bargain right now. Mara showed us recently that he can't really get below a 1x. He can't really get below a 1x. Mara was trading at 0.99 Bitcoin price to NAV for like a day, and then it bounced back. It bounced back to like 1.05, and now Mara is getting a somewhat respectable price to NAV compared to its history. And of course, Mara is quote unquote the worst miner out there. A lot of people love to hate on Mara. And even them, they trade at a 20% premium. So it's kind of dumb to assume that MSTR's bag is going to trade at a 20% premium. It's kind of dumb to assume it's going to go to a 1.2. But this is conservative investing. So let's be dumb and let's assume it trades at 1. Let's assume it trades for the price of its Bitcoin. So if you do that, that's a 39% drawdown in the price of MSTR. In other words, for somebody who's been in Bitcoin for a long time, for anybody who's been in Bitcoin prior to 2020, a 39% drop, that's the worst case scenario. That kind of sounds like a joke, right? That's like 30, like it's like people who have been in Bitcoin for 10 years, they've experienced so many 80% drawdowns, so many. It's like Amazon back in the day. You've experienced like 39%. It's like a walk in the park. Especially, it would probably happen over like a 1 year period. So you would anyways. I'm not saying it can't happen in a 1 day period. Sure, if there's like some sort of a catastrophic market event where systemic risk is insane and where correlation goes to 1, sure, it could happen. But that NAV, assuming Bitcoin stays flat, that NAV dropping and compressing, which if you believe there's going to be NAV compression, you should believe probably that it's going to be over a very long time period. Then it's not that big of a drawdown. So I think price to NAV at 1.66 is frankly a bargain, and maybe I think that because smarter web companies trading at a 5 to 6x NAV multiple, and MTPLF is trading at a 3x NAV multiple. Of course, they grow their bag of Bitcoin much faster than MSTR, because MSTR is the number 1 play in the field. So anyways, but I consider this price to be pretty good if I were to rate this company. It's kind of price to NAV is kind of becoming the P ratio of Bitcoin treasury companies, and a price to NAV of a 1.6 is pretty cheap. And maybe the equivalent of like a 15p ratio for a treasury company is probably something like a 2.5. That's probably the equivalent of a 15. Anyways. So that's point number 4. Why stack MSTR? Because MSTR at current MNAV is pretty interesting. And then point number 5 as to why one would want to stack MSTR is because MSTR has options. Right, MSTR has options, and of course you may say, "Oh well, Bitcoin has options if you buy Bitcoin in the form of an index, right? In an ETF, you buy the Bitcoin ETF, you have options." Well, yeah, but these options are not nearly as volatile as MSTR's option. MSTR volatility went down quite a bit, and then it's been back up. So the volatility has been quite good. And so you can use MSTR options to earn income. And you know what I think on this channel. I think MSTY is definitely not for me. It's way too expensive, and I don't like it. If you want to earn income, I like doing it yourself if you want to earn income. And so there's many ways to do it, but I like the earning it yourself, the doing it yourself ways. So one of the do it yourself ways that is interesting, and it's paired with margin to earn income on MSTR. If you want some risk, and assuming you want to buy X amount of MSTR each month, and you want to take on some more risk in the stock, well, you could write a cash secure put on MSTR at a price you'd like to buy. Let's say MSTR is trading at, let's say it's trading at like 420. What's it trading at right now? 423. So MSTR is trading at 420 right now. Let's say you want to buy it at I don't know, 380. You want to buy it at 380? Well, you can write a cash secure put on MSTR at 380, and you collect your premium. And you write it, I don't know, 45 days out, because that's like kind of optimized for the highest premium. And if it trades down to 380 or lower, you get assigned and you buy it cheaper and you're happy. And if it doesn't trade down this low, then you just keep the premium and you live on your premium, and your premium is for you, or you can invest back that premium into MSTR. So that's the cash secure put. Of course, if you want to save on your collateral, if you want to use less collateral than the full amount, you can do a put credit spread. You can buy a lower leg of the MSTR stock price. You can buy that put at a lower price, like a 200 price, and so that way you can save your collateral. And of course, because MSTR is marginable, it creates collateral for you. And so that means that instead of using cash for that cash secure put, it's misnamed, right? We shouldn't call it a cash secure put if you use your margin. You should call it a collateralized secured put, because that cash is your buying power, right? It's backed by the margin that MSTR grants you. So the fact that MSTR grants you margin can help you create an income strategy without having to draw on your margin, just by using your margin as a collateral. And of course, I want to emphasize that a lot. This is riskier. This carries some risk, but I do think the put strategy is less risk, because the put strategy is you get to buy more Bitcoin, and on this channel, we love Bitcoin. We want to buy more Bitcoin on this channel. So I think it's less risk. Worst case scenario is you end up buying a little more MSTR. Best case scenario is you get to keep the premium. But either way, you're happy, because you want to accumulate MSTR anyways. So either way, you're happy. And you know what I think on this channel? I would not even cover covered calls on MSTR. This is way too risky for me. I've seen MSTR. You remember my video not too long ago. MSTR was up 25% in a day. Like even if you collect pennies on that call, and MSTR is up 25% in one day, you're gonna lose your MSTR. So I would not dare to do covered calls on MSTR, and this is why I do not like assets like MSTY, because MSTY does covered call on MSTRs, and that's kind of the reason. But I would be inclined to doing cash secure puts or collateralized secured puts on it, and if it drops, you're happy to buy more. If it doesn't drop, you keep the premium, and that secure put is made possible by margin that was created by just owning the common stock. So there are ways to earn income on MSTR, which we do not have yet on Bitcoin, or at least we are beginning to have them on Bitcoin. People talk about staking. Fake, right? It's pseudo staking, but pseudo staking on Bitcoin. Someone in the comment section the other day told me, "Oh, you're gonna be able to put native Bitcoin or Cardano." I just don't think it's mature enough for me. Like, to me, pure form Bitcoin is sacred. Let's wait and see if I change my mind in 10 years. But pure form Bitcoin is sacred. Using the TradFi rails, though, to earn some income, to earn options income, those TradFi rails, they are tried and true strategies. They've been around for a very long time, and I tend to trust them more. And so MSTR is very useful from that standpoint. So anyways, do I think stacking MSTR is a good idea? Well, it's a good idea for me, and for me only, because this channel is just entertainment. It's not investment advice ever on this channel. No financial advice. Please like, please subscribe, follow me on Patreon, follow me on X. Thank you for watching, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.